Hey retro gamers, today on Smashing Bricks, we venture through the Forest of Elrond to rescue the princess held captive at Castle Ironspire in Wizards and Warriors for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Welcome to episode 9 of Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. My name is Eddie Inzauto, your host, and today I'm back with a great old friend of mine, someone who's been playing video games since before he could talk, my friend Brian Brandeis. How's it going, man?
Hello. I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
How accurate was that?
Definitely, but long before I could read, that's for certain.
Yeah, video games taught you to read.
Basically, and how to memorize positions and how to do arithmetic real early on.
Yeah. So what was your first console?
Definitely the Nintendo, the NES. I think like the first game that I played was like Castlevania 1 of all games, but
Nice
I don't
way to
think I
start.
really made it anywhere of consequence, but I remember George describing the story and being like, holy crap, he figured out how to turn on the game and start playing it by himself. This is crazy. So yeah, I don't really remember it, but I believe him.
Nice. Yeah, like a lot of things when we're little, someone tells us and we're like, yeah, that's what
It
happened.
sounds about right.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about Wizards and Warriors for the Nintendo Entertainment System, which was your suggestion because it's a game that you played a lot as a kid, and I had never even played it until like last week. You and George, a previous guest on Smashing Bricks, talked about it kind of frequently back in the day because you had a special name for it.
Oh yeah, we call it like Wibbley Wobbley Sword. It has the great animation. I feel like at least I barely ever wind up using the sword functionally for its wibbly wobbly purposes, but the animations are freaking precious in this game. I feel like he looks like a little Humpty Dumpty, wibbly wobblies with his sword. He's a real goofball.
Yeah. All right, so before we get into our actual histories with the game, which I kind of just gave away, let's go through a little bit of the game's history itself. So, Wizards and Warriors was released in December 1987 in the United States and July 15th of the following year in Japan, and then finally PAL Regions got it in 1990. And this game was released for the NES only, which is surprising, right? Because a lot of these old games would get ported over to various different platforms over the years, but this one only stayed on the NES.
Interesting.
Yeah. This one was actually developed by Rare, the great long-lived company Rare, and published by Acclaim, or Jalico in Japan. So it was a Chris and Tim Stamper design with programmers Paul Proctor and Mark Besada and composer David Wise, who did the fantastic music on Donkey Kong Country, which is shocking because, well, we'll get into it. This was only Rare's second game for the NES, released after Slalom, which was one of the original black box games for the NES. But they were previously known as Ultimate Play the Game. Fantastic name. And they made games on the Sinclair Spectrum, the BBC Micro, and the MSX. Then they sold the company, renamed themselves, and kept making games. So that was the history behind this. And it came out in 1987. So it was kind of on the early to mid edge of the NES releases, so it was after the first run of games, but it came around right around the time that NES games were sort of like hitting their stride. We were seeing things like Metroid, Zelda, Punch-Out, Mega Man, and it kind of bridged the gap between eras of the NES. It was old enough to have been reviewed in the Nintendo Fun Club News, which you guys had, right? George was a subscriber.
Probably.
It was the pre-Nintendo Power magazine.
As I said, I wasn't reading when I was playing Nintendo, so maybe I looked at some pictures, but who knows?
So, yeah, it seems to have had a positive reception back then anyway, which is cool. And then it had some sequels. Can you tell us what the sequels were?
Oh, I've seen them once in a while, and they look even goofier than this game, but no, I've never played them.
Really? Just the original is all you played and then never came back?
Nah.
Oh,
I only
okay.
found out about them much later on when I saw somebody playing them on Twitch and being like, oh, holy smokes, I didn't even... I would have never imagined they made a sequel to this game.
It might be because the naming convention strayed for the second one. They named the second one Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2 for the NES in 1989. And then there was Wizards and Warriors X, The Fortress of Fear, on the Game Boy in 1990. And finally, Wizards and Warriors 3, Kuros, Visions of Power for the NES in 1992. And that is a game that has 2 colons in its title.
Very unique. That may be one of a kind there.
It got no remakes, no re-releases, but Acclaim did make an LCD handheld version in 1989.
There's some very interesting choices here, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those games that had the static screen and it would just make the little sprites in LCD and they would have a few particular locations where they could be. And it had a hexagonal plastic housing, only one action button, a start, a select button, and a D-pad, and you jumped using the up button on the D-pad instead of an action button. And that's really all we have for like history and legacy. Wizards and Warriors, not a super legendary popular game. So I guess that brings us really just to our histories, and since I have none, like I just said before, what can you recall about Wibbley Wobbley Sword back in the day? What's your story with it?
Oh, okay. So, I definitely remember it being the first Nintendo game that I actually beat before my older brother, George, who's 4 years older than me, beat. So that it has a unique, memory in that. It was something acquired much later in the NES history. Nowhere near release did we get it. Maybe we rented it a few times, but it was one of those Funko Land purchases for El Cheapo, and then one time I just beat it over the weekend. But yeah, you could just brute force it. So that was my elementary school style. I could just pound through it the Nintendo was not really known for having gentle games with a lot of continues. So this was a rarity of that where I could actually beat it through just trial and error. But yeah, that's how I got it. I definitely enjoyed it. It was pretty fun and accessible as a kid. And not get lost and stuck forever or just lose over and over again, which was the majority of experiences of games on Nintendo for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was pretty unusual, like you said, for a game to just give you unlimited continues. The whole point of a lot of those early games was to make sure that the player died a lot, had to restart over again, so it seemed like they were getting their value for their purchase, because it was pretty soon after the collapse of the video game industry. And I think developers and publishers always felt like there was a risk of people just giving up on games when they decided that it wasn't worth it. So unlimited continues meant you could just go through it. But it was kind of a hard game, right?
Sure, I feel like there was hard parts, but you never had to backtrack that much.
Yeah.
Some of the bosses, sure, they were difficult, but it's not like you're replaying a stage. It's not like dying to a boss in Mega Man, for example, where you're like, oh god, I gotta go through everything all over again. At least if you run out of continues.
Yeah.
This, it's like you can die literally 100 times in a row, and it doesn't matter. You'll get there eventually.
I guess that's true. When I first started the game, that first level I found kind of hard to quite get without having to go in and read the instruction manual, because I didn't know really what was going on. But I think you're right. Like, after I pretty much understood how the game worked, it stopped really being difficult.
Yeah, like other than a couple like difficult jumps in there, like I feel like that's the hardest part or the most frustrating aspect of the game is some of the platforming and the hidden mechanics there that aren't really explained. But other than that, you can kind of just power through it.
Yeah. So can you tell the listeners what the mechanics of the game are? Like, what kind of game is this?
Oh, this is it's definitely a side scroller, but it's not it's a more open world side scroller in that you aren't like kind of ever on a linear platform at all. The worlds are much more open. The only time that you're really locked into a screen ever is during the boss fighting, but otherwise you go level by level. It's kind of like if like Super Ghouls and Ghosts was like an open world adventure instead. You get to hop around, find monsters, get the power-ups and stuff, but you're this little knight battling all sorts of goofy little animals or little creatures and monsters, collecting keys to open doors and open treasure chests. You have your primary weapons a sword, but the cool thing is like you can do like jump swords with it. That's like pretty powerful. You can get sub weapons that allow you to like throw weapons like daggers and axes. You can kick things with your boot, which is one of my personal favorite attacks. But yeah, you run around and complete the stages, and most of the time there's after you've collected keys and gotten the appropriate amount of gems to unlock the stage, you usually fight a boss. Then you do it all over again until you get to the final boss, pretty much.
Woo! Yeah, it's so funny to see this game and know that it's designed by Rare, and then think about the games that they released in sort of like the Nintendo 64 era, which were notably collectathons, and also things like Banjo-Kazooie and the Donkey Kong 64, the 3D version of Donkey Kong. The whole sort of point behind those games was collecting enough of whatever thing was the collectible so that it would open up the door to go forward, which is exactly kind of the main premise behind this game, is the gems. You have to get all those gems, and that'll get you through the door at the end of whatever section of that level you're on, where there's a weird, like, phantom version of you, like this red, right?
Yeah.
With a number.
He's got
over his
the
head.
invincibility potion. That's why he's red on. When you get the invincibility potion,
oh
you're
right.
red.
So like,
yeah,
why is it you? Is that
knight.
the magic of the evil wizard?
I don't know.
We need some more lore going on here.
I feel like it's in Monty Python, like the Black Knight that you can't cross. Thou shalt not pass. Yeah.
Yeah. So this game's like, it was kind of ahead of its time, really, because for 1987, being able, well, maybe not. It was among some of the games that were starting to experiment. It had this free roaming world, essentially, where you could go up, down, left, right, and there was no restriction on which direction you could go. And essentially, it was a hunt for the things that you needed. The keys were super important. Like, that's also like a main thing. You couldn't get through the level without collecting certain keys of a few different colors that would open up particular doors and particular treasure chests, right? Because some of those treasure chests were the only way to get enough gems to go forward.
Exactly, yeah. Or use the boots to open up the treasure chest. That was another fun way of opening up chests, too.
You can do that?
Yep. The boots would always kick open a chest. So the unfortunate thing is if you got like the boots replaced by something else, then you couldn't swap back. But yeah, the boots can open up chests, but not doors. But it's pretty fun.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. So you still need the keys because the doors kind of gate off progress, but I didn't realize that you could kick open chests.
Yeah,
That's kind of
that's
cool,
a
though.
cool little mechanic. Yeah, I definitely remembered that. But yeah, no, you don't need every key on every stage. Some of them are optional, that's for sure. Like, or you can do like little semi glitches like damage boost to like avoid needing them. In particular, the second forest stage, I feel like you need like one key. Like, you don't need all three of them really.
Yeah, that first forest stage, I did not like when I first started playing at
It's a
your
little overwhelming.
suggestion. I jumped in, I
Yeah.
was like, what the hell is this game?
It throws it at you, but then you're like, oh, once you get over that hump, you're like, that's pretty much the baseline for the rest of the game.
So yeah, that first world, it kind of threw these enemies at me. The one thing that I remember thinking was, geez, these enemies are just flying at me
They're
constantly.
relentless. They're relentless.
Yeah, and like kind of like the Ninja Gaiden series, you kill one, the next one comes. They just
Mhm.
constantly come. There's no clearing the
No
stage
reprieve.
ever
Nope.
in any way. So it was really a shock. And then kind of learning some of the mechanics like the jump sword that you mentioned. I didn't really realize what was going on because I would sometimes do damage and then I figured out, oh, when you jump, he's essentially spearing with his sword, right? It's an
Hmm.
attack. Because I thought to myself, you can't jump and swing your sword? That blows. And then I realized, oh, every
Even
jump
better.
is an attack. Yeah,
Yep.
even better. But the best thing was probably the throwing weapons for me. I like to throw the
Interesting.
weapons. The dagger and the axe that you get.
Yeah, they're good for like sniping enemies, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just found that the sword slash was super limited.
Oh yeah, for sure. I never used that pretty much. Like, other than like once in a while, like I would duck to use it to like stab something if I was trying to get low to dodge a monster, like if I was jumping. But yeah, like realistically, I used either the sub weapons or the throwing weapons to deal the vast majority of my damage.
Hmm. Yeah, that, like you said earlier, that animation is so weird. He's like holding the sword at his belly button and just kind of,
Jiggling it up and down. He's
yeah.
like, yes, belly button to chest, belly button to chest. That's my
And you
attack.
can kind of attack upward, right?
Can you? I've only, like, I know the jump slash will do that, or like, the jump stab, but is
See,
there an
that's
up
the thing.
attack?
Even if you can, I'm not sure if you can because the animation is so minimally different. I feel like the regular slash looks slightly different, and if you hold up, there's a slightly different angle of the
Huh.
sword, but it's like basically the same range, which is like 1 inch. It's
Just
like
pokes
nowhere.
above his head. Huh. Yeah, no, I can't remember ever trying that. But maybe.
Hmm. How do you feel about the actual jumping mechanics in the game?
Not suit. I wasn't like, it's not like the worst jumping system. It's not like Castlevania where like you're 100% committed, locked in. Like you can do a little bit of redirection, but yeah, you
Hmm.
do need to commit on some of the power. I feel like the platforming isn't that cruel, so even if the jumping is a little bit not like super smooth, it's not like Super Mario Brothers level, but it's
Yeah.
it's all right. It's tolerable. I could I didn't complain too much about it.
It's kind of, it would be unfair to compare everything to Mario.
Exactly. Like that's too high of a bar.
Yeah. I do feel like the jump is like a little floaty, like somewhere between Mario and Luigi.
That's a good comparison, yeah. Yep, yeah, you're definitely way more floaty, especially when you get the freaking potions, then you're just like, yeah, hovering for forever. But
Yeah. Yeah, we have potions that let you run really fast, and that gives you also a longer jump. And
mhm.
then one of them is a high jump,
Yep.
and one of
Pink is
them
high, light blue is fast and long jump, and then the red is invincibility.
is that all of them?
Yeah, pretty. That's all the potions, unless there's a super secret one I've never seen before.
Did you find that a lot of your play relied on getting any particular things besides the boots?
Oh yeah. That's one of the more frustrating things about the game. At least as a kid, that got me like stuck because like the overall gameplay of it is not that long. On my replay, I beat it in like less than 3 hours while eating pizza. So like I was taking it real casual because I knew everything. But like if you don't have the feather, which is like kind of a hard to get item on the second stage, very easy to miss. I feel like the third stage becomes nigh impossible or like really frustrating to like make a certain jump, like where you need to like kill enemies to get a potion to make a difficult jump. And like it's very hard to get that potion because it's a rare drop and the potion can get stuck in the wall. Like that is like one of the most frustrating experiences. But if you have the feather, it's like a complete joke. So that's like, the only one of the few parts of the game that, I mean, you can still brute force, like you can try and get a potion forever from one of those enemies to retry that jump. But yeah, if you don't get that feather on the second page, the game becomes like, basically, I could see people turning the game off and never playing it again at that point.
That's funny because I got stuck there for a little while. I did not get the feather in, I guess it's in the ice cave, the blue cave.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Stage
get
2.
it there. So in the red cave, the lava cave, which is next, I got to the part where you had to ride the bubble way up to the top, and then there was the impossible jump with a slope. Actually, in a lot of these caves, there were sloped surfaces that if you jumped on them, you would just automatically slide down. And this was one of them, but it was a necessary place to go, like to get one of the keys, I think.
Yep,
And
red
I was
key.
up there at the top, and I figured, oh, I just need something that I don't have, so I'll go keep looking around. And I looked everywhere, and there was nothing. And then I was talking to you and George, and you said what was necessary, and I was like, oh, God. So I didn't have the feather because I missed it. So I just stood up there, and I killed enemies until I think the blue potion came up, so I could run from the ramp on the other side and make a long jump up. Or maybe it was the pink potion to do a high jump. It was one of them. But it was hard at that point.
Oh, you did pull it off with the potion though? I thought I restarted and got the feather.
No. I didn't get the feather till after, because the feather actually does show up in a subsequent level again.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so you did do it the potion way. Good
Yeah.
job.
And so do other items show up later, like the boots. I got the strong kick boots, whatever they're called. I had those in the first level. Didn't use them for opening chests, but I did kick some people in the face. And then I got the lava boots, which I don't know if they work. If they
I don't know what they
do
do.
anything?
I was thinking about it too. I was like, oh, cool, I got lava boots. I mean, I hate that I lost my other boots, but now I can stand the lava, and then I took damage anyway. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
I wonder if you just take more damage without them, because you definitely take some damage, kind of slowly, I guess.
Yeah, it's and it usually you have like the levitating potion at that point, so it doesn't really matter. You don't need to stand on the fire, but yeah.
What I do know that you can do is you can stand on top of these sort of vertical lava columns and not take damage. But below that, there's a flat level of just lava that you can walk on also, and you do take damage. So I don't know, maybe you take damage on both of them if you don't have the lava boots or something. But my point was, later on, there's another treasure chest that gives you the kick boots back again in a later level.
Yeah, same thing with like the shield. Like you get that on the first level but you can easily miss it, but you can get that later on as well.
Mm-hmm. And another interesting thing is in some levels, there are multiple items that take the same slot, and you can get one, and then the other one will be in the other treasure chest. And if you get that treasure chest, the previous treasure chest closes again, so you could pick up the one that you previously had again and keep going back and forth between them, which I think was a cool touch.
Yeah, I just wish it gave you the choice before it to swap. Be like, do you want to swap to this?
Yeah. Or just show
nice.
what's in there. Like put a little icon of it. Like, this is the boots. And you're like, oh, great. Now I know that I want to use the pink key because I really want the boots.
Mm-hmm. Well, hindsight in game design is easy in the Nintendo era, but there's many good features of the game, so I don't want to bash it too much.
No, yeah, it was overall a good experience. That feather is dope. I love the feather because you take damage from falling otherwise.
I mean, you don't take that much. You take like one. But yeah, you could just cover so much more horizontal distance. Like, you're just like floating forever. And a lot of the stages are very vertical oriented. So.
Yeah, super vertical with kind of precise platforms.
Yes.
But even if the falling isn't a lot of damage each time, the falling animation kicks in pretty fast after you're falling, from a higher area to a lower one. You can only jump downward so far before the animation of the character changes and you're just falling and there's no way out of that.
Really? Ha! I
Yeah.
didn't even know that.
Yeah, you get the feather so soon you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only time I'd ever really would have tested that is like on the tower level where like you wind up going all the way to the top to getting a key that you gotta open up a door all the way on the bottom with. And so I usually go Geronimo from the top of there, but
yeah, and take 1 damage, which is cool. So, speaking of damage, the music. The freaking music. So this game was, the music of this game was composed by David Wise, who did Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country, I'm on record as saying, is one of my favorite soundtracks of literally all time in video games. Not quite with Wizards and Warriors. I love the opening track.
Yeah.
But is there a particular track that sticks out in your mind on this one?
Well, only in the negative sense is the low damage one. Like, when you're low damage, I was like, just kill me already so I can get the regular stage music back.
God,
I don't
so
remember
annoying.
the stage music being like that offensive. Like, but it was like pretty short. Nothing too memorable, but that low damage music was so annoying. It was like 2 freaking bars repeated over and over again.
Yeah, most of the music was very short loops, but the stage music was clearly better than that low health music, which kicked in below, I think, 4 blocks of energy, which is where I always was, because I would get hit a lot, then die, and continue. Get hit a lot, die, continue.
Yep.
Oh, man. And there was different music for invincibility, and when you got the clock item that froze enemies, except I only ever got the clock when there was no enemy on the screen for whatever reason. That's just how it
Those
worked out.
power-up sounds were pretty terrible, too.
Yeah, at first I didn't even realize what was going on because I would get the clock item. It would show up, but my character would already be like right in that spot, so I would pick it up before realizing that I picked it up. And I was like, what is that sound for? Something is counting down right now, and I don't know what it is. And then later I figured it out. I had a whole question mark on here. I was like, I don't know what that music is. But yeah, that music, man. That music. It's amazing that Mr. Wise went on to create the Donkey Kong Country music. That's the biggest revelation of Wizards and Warriors for me.
Maybe he had a 1-week deadline to do every song in the game. I don't know.
How about the bosses?
Yeah, I mean, like, they were very, like, lumpy in difficulty. Like, some of them, like, of the later bosses were way easier than, like, the second stage's boss. Like, the bat one was pretty memorable just because you gotta run down that hallway, which is pretty cool. And, like, I guess the skeleton boss is, like, actually pretty hard. I would say he's probably, like, the hardest boss. But, I mean, you get to retry him pretty much as you want, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that skeleton was cool. Most of the bosses in the game are pretty much identical. They're just a floating thing that moves around the screen and you have to hit it. And then they do, like, sort of, they mix it up slightly, like the spider spits out spiders and he's hanging from a thread and he just moves a little bit differently. And then that skeleton is crazy because it starts out, he's like 8 pixels.
It's such a wee baby skeleton.
And he's throwing bones at you. And then
the
after you hit him,
little bones. The little bones.
Then he grows like 4 or 5 times until he's twice the size of Kuros, the main character.
Yeah. I think there's 4 phases to him, so, and like there's a lot of health on each of those phases, so it's pretty difficult.
And all the while he's Hammer Brothers-ing you with his bones. Yep. It's basically kind of the reference point of how he's attacking. So he was tough, for sure. But also probably the most interesting of all the bosses, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
And there's the final boss, who I cheesed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think cheesing, like, I dislike the final boss because cheesing is the only way to beat them. Like, at least the other bosses, you have, like, a variety of attacks. Like, you can use your throwing weapons. You can use, like, the kick that does a lot of damage, but it's risky. You can use your sub-weapons, like the power wand. But, like, for the final boss, I've never found a way of doing it besides just camping a spot and cheesing it. Like, other than that, it's just so hard. They're just too fast. Teleport, snipe. Teleport, snipe. Teleport, snipe.
Yeah. Yeah, I found a spot. So that final stage is kind of shaped like a skull. It looks like.
I saw that. It's like, I was looking at some of the maps of the game. I was like, I never realized that. But.
So I stood on this little sloped area next to what would be the mouth, because there's a section to the right of me where there was like a platform up and down and then up and down and up and down, and he would only phase in like 4 or 5 spots, but all of them were reachable with my throwing axe. So once he showed up, I would just launch it and dodge, and it took kind of a while, but I got it. Wasn't too terribly hard. But if at first I just tried to like run around and hit him, and I was like, oh, this is not going to work out.
Did you get the double throwing axe? That makes it even easier.
I did not. I didn't know
that was a thing. You can miss that. Exactly. That's another like secret mechanic. So you know how after you got the throwing weapons, once in a while, the enemies themselves would drop your throwing weapons and you could pick it up in an item and you'd be like, huh, what does that do? I guess it's just points or something. If you collect 4 of those on the single stage, like, without dying, that's the trick. You can't die in between. You have to collect 4, then you get double throwing weapons. But
is that when they drop what looks like the icon on the bottom of the screen?
Exactly. If you have the throwing dagger, they drop the throwing dagger. If you drop the axes, they drop the axe. But, if you collect 4 of either of those, you get it.
Oh, okay. There's also another drop that looks kind of like a cross, but it's a dagger, just vertically. And that, I think, extends the range of your weapon.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, it just looks like a little cross. It's like a dagger floating in the space. Yeah, man. I thought the game actually looked pretty good.
It's pretty smooth, yeah. No, like despite being wibbly and wobbly, the characters' animations are like smooth wibble wobbles. It's like you.
I actually really liked the main character sprite, kind of a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like they put a lot of effort into like following that around. Like all of his animations look pretty good. Like his duck stabs, his swinging his sword, booting things, even when he's falling out of the sky and getting dazed and recovering. Like it's a not bad character.
Yeah, it's good that when a development team focuses their graphical efforts on the thing that you're looking at the entire time.
In the center of
Pretty
the screen
smart.
Constantly. Good investment, yeah.
Yeah, so what else was interesting about this game? Any particular elements that stood out to you that are worth mentioning as far as like the design or structure?
I like that you see the whole world map. Like, as I said, like, in the beginning, like, I felt like there's a weird connection to Super Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghouls and Ghosts despite that, because I feel like they show that overview map the whole time. You're adventuring across it. You're like this knight in gray armor. For some reason, I always made that connection. I have no idea if there actually is an official one, but, it's just a much more accessible version of that.
Jeez. Talk about a hard game. That's a hard game.
Exactly. Like, compared to that game, which definitely I played on the Super Nintendo probably before I beat this game. Like, I was like, whoa, yeah. I couldn't even get through, like, the first stage consistently on that game as a kid.
Yeah. And the Nintendo version, Ghosts and Goblins, I think was even harder than Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Yeah, I like the map, though, because it kind of gave you that sense of knowing where you're going and understanding your progress. So there was like an emotional, psychological component to it. Because you start in the forest, you go down a tunnel, then there's the blue cave, the red cave, the purple cave, up another tunnel, a forest, and then the castle. And the outside and the inside.
The thing is, the map's ridiculously accurate, too. Like, it really does look exactly like the stages, like, each single one of them. Like, I feel like
they're the same shape? Like, the cave is the same shape as the cave?
You could, like, blow them up and they would look like the exact maps. Like, I'm pretty sure they're accurate
That's
representations.
Cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. I didn't even realize it, but just knowing that makes me happy.
Yeah.
I like the invisible doors.
Oh, yeah, the secrets. Yeah, those are so funny. I felt like I kept, like, just bumping into them. I'd be like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Like, you wouldn't know that they were there, but, like, you're jumping in the air, and it stops for a second, a door appears, and you're in another area. I was like, oh, cool, secrets. Which is another rare thing. Like, they had that in Donkey Kong Country all the time. You know, you blow open the side of an unassuming wall, and now you're in a bonus stage. So it's interesting to see the progress of their kind of development ethos. It's really cool.
You know, it's an interesting thing about those gems is that they actually, if you bump into them, only give you one gem. But if you use your throwing weapons on them, they give you 2 gems. So it's actually very advantageous to use your throwing weapons to collect the bonus gems.
All of the gems?
No, so like the bonus gems in particular, I know are worth 1 gem. I think the purple gems that drop are also worth 1 gem, but the red glowing gems are worth 2, regardless of you touching them or catching them. So, you know, you got to min-max gems in like a couple
which are the
stages on
bonus
this board.
ones?
Like the ones that are in the stage, like in those secret doors, are usually like flashing, or when you find like the hidden power blocks, they're also like they're very like sparkly looking almost. They definitely look different compared to the ones that enemies will drop.
Got it. So you want to pick up the sort of shimmering ones with your throwing weapon, which is a cool mechanic that we didn't mention. Is that you can pick up
your boomerang?
Yeah, you can pick up most of the
anyway.
standing items with your throwing weapon, but not the ones that enemies drop. But that's
which
really
is annoying. Because you want to pick up the potions through the walls, in particular on that 3rd stage.
Yeah.
I'm just like, damn it, why don't you work?
But at least you can get the gems, because that's the main thing you're wanting to collect anyway.
Yep.
So there are those hidden gems, like you were saying. It's more like the hidden blocks in Super Mario Brothers. You'll jump, and all of a sudden, a gem will come out of thin air. And if you keep jumping, you get more of them.
Some of them are in, like, trolley spots, too. Like, I'm trying to make a jump, and I'll accidentally hit one of them. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, they got some Kaizo blocks in this game. I don't remember that very well, but...
And that affects the physics of your jump, right? Like, it stops your momentum.
Yeah, exactly. You bump your head, and you don't make the jump, so you wind up, like, falling down the tree. There's a couple of times that happened to me.
Yeah, I didn't even notice any of the hidden gems until after the caves on my way back up. And it was, the first one I noticed was climbing up a tree with some dangly spiders, and I definitely fell at that point.
Yeah, probably the same one, yeah.
Yeah, it was just in the exact spot. But that's cool. But you couldn't hit those with your throwing weapon, right?
I don't think so. Yeah, and that's actually, now that I were mentioning them, I'm like really curious what happens if you levitate into them as opposed to jumping them. I did not test that mechanic, but that would be something fun to
Oh,
test.
I like that levitation. It gets you just a little extra on your jump.
Mm.
That's a permanent potion that you pick up and it stays with you forever.
Yep.
I like that one.
It's a good one, yeah. The sub, all those little bonus items are like really, really nice to have. The shield blocks and like you really blocks a lot of projectiles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice. Like there are those quality of life upgrades. The feather, the potion, it makes adventuring across the world not too bad.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite part of the game?
Favorite part of the game? That's a good question.
Or like any other notable moments that you'll never forget that we haven't mentioned yet?
I feel like climbing up that tower in particular was definitely very memorable. Seems to be a very different part of the stage by comparison. It's kind of like Magnet Man's invisible blocks, but a lot more gentle because you have the levitating potion. So sometimes you can just bail out and just hold either recover with the feather or use the potion to just think for a couple seconds and watch the patterns without they're having to commit to anything.
Mm-hmm. I completely
like,
thought
cool.
of Mega Man on that castle stage, the exterior castle with the sort of blocks coming out on the Z axis.
Yep.
So you could jump on them and then coming back in. But interestingly, this was made in the same year as Mega Man 1. So those were contemporaneously designed elements. I think. Was that even in Mega Man 1 or was that not until Mega Man 2?
I remember it more from Mega Man 2, but I barely remember Rockman.
Yeah, I mean, Mega Man 1 was lame compared to the rest.
Couldn't tell you.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, I like that level a lot too, because it felt like the culmination of what you'd been doing. Everything before
exactly.
that
you felt like you earned that.
Normal.
Yeah. Yeah, there was like a couple buggy things in the game that like definitely I remember standing out to me. Like you get like that cloak of invisibility. I feel like it does nothing because the enemies just still freaking come all over you.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, there's like some horn that you get in the fire cave. Like if you backtrack to it, I have no idea what that does, but like it doesn't attack or summon anything. I guess I should have looked it up. And like even on like there's like, when I was fighting the final boss, one of the times, like it glitched out and there's just like a constant extra fireball shooting at me from the side. Like there's also another little glitch on the second forest stage where like if you die in a certain way, all of the enemies revert to the first stages. Like it's really weird. Yeah. Like I've recorded my video. Yeah, exactly. You get the eagles back, but then if you go into a door and come back out, like they reset and everything back to normal. But it is like funny that there's some glitches that like are pretty easy to discover in that game, or just things that are non-functional.
That's funny. That reminds me a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, when you would go into an area and you expect one set of enemies, but all of a sudden it's the other set of enemies, and you're like, oh, let me just go out this door and come back in.
That I didn't even know that was.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot in that game, and it's funny because both of these games have that same sort of issue of just constantly throwing enemies at you if you go an inch back and then go forward again. It's another one with the constantly respawning enemies. I wonder if that's a sort of error that happens specifically with games that populate the screen with enemies in the same way. Maybe these use like sort of similar coding mechanisms. You think that could be a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. Like some of them are like, if you cross this X boundary on the pixel, spawn an enemy. So like no matter how many times you go back and forth, you're just like going like across that boundary and it's always respawning the enemies. Like, yeah, that's some lazy coding, but so it's probably, I mean, not lazy coding.
Lazy or dealing within the parameters of you have 10 kilobytes to work with.
Exactly, in assembly and everything. So yeah, it's dealing with what you had to deal with, finding a solution that works and saying it's good enough. Yeah, but it totally could happen.
That's so interesting. It's really funny to look at some of the ways some of these old games work. And that cloak, I really was excited to get that cloak because I read the instruction manual to actually figure out what the hell to do in this game, and I saw that and I was like, "Ooh, I can't wait to get that." And then I used it and
So
I'm trying to walk
disappointed.
and I'm immediately still swarmed by all the enemies. I'm like, "So this does nothing because I'm not only am I taking damage, which that would be fine, but I would expect that the enemies don't home in on me like they always do normally. So it literally does nothing except make it harder to see yourself."
Yep, exactly. Changes the music to an annoying music too, and makes you sparkly and hard to see. And yeah, no, it's so useless.
Oh,
Give
man.
me back my boots.
The boots. The magic boots. Were the boots stronger than the sword?
Oh,
Like the kick?
the boots are super strong. Yeah, that's how I wound up beating that's how I beat a bunch of bosses and a bunch of like the final boss. I just stood in a spot basically and booted him to death. Like you can take over half his health if you're just spamming the boot and standing there.
Are they the strongest weapon?
I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, the only other weapon that's stronger is like when you do like quadruple hits with like the axe, because sometimes you can just like keep it like hitting them over and over again if you're like jumping it.
Oh,
in,
if you
like,
avoid receiving the boomerang, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can hit it multiple times. I'm pretty sure, like while it's passing through them, like if it stays in their hitbox across like the duration.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever use the different magic spells? You could get a wand and like 2 different wands or something.
There's the power wand, which is really good, but I think you only get it in one spot early on, like in the fire cave. And then there's the ice wand, which is pretty mediocre. I think there's one boss that it's good against, but the boots work against every boss. So.
I'd just rather have the boots. Oh, interesting. Do you think that some bosses are more vulnerable to certain weapons?
Oh yeah, no, I know it for sure. They're like one of them takes extra damage from the ice rod. I think it might be the bat even that takes the extra damage from the ice rod if you have it.
Oh, that's cool.
So they do each have their own little well, I don't know if they all have weaknesses, but there are some weaknesses, but it's...
And I'm guessing you get the ice rod in the ice cave, and the bat boss is the boss of the ice cave, or is he the boss of the tunnel? I don't remember. In any case, it's possible to have it when you fight him.
Yeah, but I think you do need to have it from the first stage. Is like there's a way to get it while you're falling down the tree in the first stage. You can get the ice rod, which then deals extra damage.
Well, that's cool. Some little secrets, some like speed running tactics. Get the ice rod, make sure you can hit the bat and kill him quickly instead of dying 10 times.
Yeah, the super speed running tactic is on again that same forest stage that has the weird respawn technique or that it can change to the enemies like that I know how to glitch out, but you actually can like clip through one of the sides of the map. I think you like clip through the left side of the map on the speed run or on that stage, and you wind up going back to stage 1. And then you just beat stage 1 like normal and stage 2 like normal. And then I think stage 3 like normal. And then the game just goes to the win screen because it's just counting like the number of princesses that you've rescued. So you just get to the princess counter.
That's so cool. I like that. Big speed running community for wizards and warriors out there, folks.
I think I saw one person run the game like 7 years ago. Yeah, nice. Who knows?
Okay, so I guess we really covered it. It's not a huge game.
No, really not. A couple hours, very accessible, makes like the play... That's why I suggested it as like a replay game. I was like, yeah, I can pick this game up and beat this in no time. This is like easy peasy lemon squeezy, no problem.
Yeah, and it was good for me too, because it was my first time. So do you think today, would you recommend that the listeners go and replay it?
I mean... If you want to get nostalgic with NES, it's certainly not one of the worst tries. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun. It's not among my most favorite games, but it's definitely an interesting look at gaming history. So I enjoyed it.
Exactly. Like for its time, it's very interesting what they were able to accomplish. I like a lot of elements of the game, like the open world platforming, the very considerate player scenario, some of the cool mechanics. Like there's a lot of good ideas there, and it wasn't like hard, like no like super major flaws in the game that I'm just like, oh, like the music was like grating, but like not unbearable. It's not freaking like Hide Light over here.
So now are you going to go back and play Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2, and Wizards and Warriors 3, Kuros, Visions of Power?
No, if anything, I would watch like the speed runs of that, like a speed run with commentary that, or like a power playthrough of them, like actually adventuring through them myself. That would take me way too long. Because I have seen like at least one of them, and they are like much longer and much more like RPG oriented.
Oh, okay.
I feel like you go around the world and like collect items, and then like you can report back to NPCs and stuff like that, and there's shops and stuff. It's a more involved game.
That sounds cool, though. I might try it, but if there's no unlimited continues, I'm out.
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know about that.
I will hard quit at that moment. If it says, like, you have 3 continues left, I'm like, nope, I have 0. Goodbye.
I have save state, so yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's that. It's the great thing about retro gaming in the modern age.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, that's going to do it. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And it was good to play this game.
No problem. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it.
Maybe you'll do another game at some point.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to think of another one.
Another quick one.
Did you do River City Ransom yet? That could be another game I could beat in probably like 2 hours again. I don't even know.
That one is certainly on the list. Spoiler alert to the listeners.
Nice.
River City Ransom may be coming.
I'm spoiling everything. Yeah.
All right, Brian. I'll catch you later.
All right, it's been real. Bye-bye.
All right, that's another game and another episode in the books here at Smashing Bricks. Wizards and Warriors was fun, and it's cool playing games that I actually haven't played before, making it not a replay, but a first-time play. And I hope you're playing along with the games that we play here on the show also when you can. For my next episode, you can't just yet, because it's a mystery guest and mystery game. And I will reveal that in the coming days via Instagram. So make sure you follow me at Smashing Bricks on Instagram, and you'll be able to see what that game is going to be, so you can get a hold of it and get playing for that one as well. In the meantime, follow us there. Follow me on Twitter at smashing_bricks. And of course, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast platform of choice so you get these episodes the day they come out. Finally, if you have anything to say about Wizards and Warriors, your experience playing with it, or any of the other games we've played previously on the show, drop us a line either via Anchor with the voice messaging feature, on Twitter, on Instagram, or at smashingbrickspodcast@gmail.com. I would love to read your hot takes, cold takes, lukewarm takes on all the games that I've played here. That's all for now. Stay tuned for that upcoming game reveal. I'm your host, Eddie Inzauto, and until next time, may the nostalgia be with you.